we have had a lot of visitors that do use the park, that even if it's just for parking at the zoo or North Beach, it's used.
Right.
I mean, the courts are always used. I see kids at the park, and I see people playing tennis, the bike paths. I mean, it's a beautiful Lakeview Park that we all share, and I want to continue to share it.
Good morning, Racine. Welcome back to Talking Racine. Just Mr. George Myers here.
Yes. What's the new one we got? To revitalize and
reimagine and revitalize.
Yeah.
And Jim Spodek, our bulldog of a researcher. I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, the guy that starts the show. And today, we're talking about separating fact from fiction. I don't know why they titled it that. They don't have any. Where are the facts?
That's always hard.
I think they got it reversed when it comes to what's fact and what's fiction in that article.
Well, it's not really fiction in here. It's just kind of ideas. You know, I wouldn't call this a factual report. This is about the Lakeview Park situation and what's going on over there, which they'll tell you there's nothing going on.
That's the fiction.
Yeah.
Here's the developer to tell you that nothing's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the citizens are wondering, what the hell is going on? In fact, you did an interview earlier in the week. You talked to a gal that lives over in that area, and she's kind of the de facto representative of the people in that neighborhood. And you're going to play an audio tape, huh?
Right. Yeah. We have.
What are these people going to look at while you're playing?
Well, I'll put some visuals up.
Put some bubbles up there.
Yeah, there you go. Like
Don Ho.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's interesting the way she started off with her query is not what's going on, it's what's not going on.
Yeah.
Why is a building sitting there with nothing happening?
Correct. That was a good point. Her name's Christine Scott, and she actually has a Facebook page called Save Lakeview Park. And I'll put the connection up here. And she was very candid about talking about what's happening. She's got kind of a group put together in that area on the north side, and it was a nice about 11 minutes. And I kind of want to play the whole thing because I think she did a good job.
Good interview.
Yeah,
good interview and very
nice
informative.
lady.
Yeah. So
get a feel of what's going up around that.
Yeah, because I think when you get the
area.
Journal Times and you see this, it's separating fact from fiction. Well, there's a lot of fiction going on, and I think we'll kind of come back after she's done and we'll kind of discuss it a little bit. But
yeah,
what do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
All right,
so
we'll go in and let's listen to her.
Hi, Christine. It's Jim from Talking Racine. I just got a few questions. I know that you are instrumental in kind of an activist, I guess you'd call it, on Lakeview Park in Racine here. Can you just kind of give me a little bit of background of how you got started and what you're kind of doing, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Christine Scott, and I am a lifelong Racine resident, as well as a lifelong Northsider. As of Lakeview Park, it has always been a place that I've enjoyed. As a child, I would go to the park, meet other neighborhood kids, use the playground, as well as the rec center, with ping pong and other activities that they had. And as a mother, I would bring my kids there. And I am still within blocks of Lakeview Park, where I pass quite often taking the dog for a walk.
Great.
So it was definitely something I wanted to be involved in. I've always enjoyed that park. So I felt it was just a need to get involved and have my voice at least heard and other community members.
So when did you when did you hear that the city was actually contracting with a developer for an option on the property? I mean, how did you find out?
Well, it was more I was a little suspicious that nothing was being done with the building. I would pass and, I hadn't seen any construction, anything happening there. But then I began to see certain surveillances being done. I would see activity in the park that just made me a little suspicious what was going on. Then I started to hear rumors, about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably at that time I heard about the Chavez meeting, and I knew that I wanted to attend and just get more information about what was going on.
Yeah, now that was just local neighbors that came up and said they're having a meeting at the Chavez Center?
It was one of the city officials. It was a couple aldermen put it on.
Okay.
And I heard about it, through another neighbor. And so she and I went, and we're part of that, which was well attended, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of very good questions, a lot of, known people in Racine that, different construction companies, as well as the director of the zoo, members from downtown.
And what was the consensus at the Chavez Center generally? That was just generally neighborhood people and some of the people are concerned about the park. What was the actual consensus of the meeting?
A lot of concern, excuse me, a lot of concern what they heard, what was going on about the fire, about the monies paid out, why other companies were not consulted or offered to come up with a plan or a proposal. So there's a lot of good questions. Now, not all the questions could be answered. I don't think all the right officials were there. They did a good job trying, but the people who were there still had questions.
Right. So when did you start your website? You started a Facebook page, I should say.
Within 24 hours of that.
Okay. So obviously you had a concern. You went to start a Facebook page right away.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. How did you feel the aldermen accepted, how do you think they felt about the park? Were they receptive, or were they just saying this is something that's going to happen?
Well, it was a little bit hard for me to really judge. I felt they wanted to inform us. I don't know that they were able to tell us everything we needed to know. I was glad that they did have that, just so we could start the ball rolling, and I did appreciate that.
Did the mayor or any other city developer, the head of city development, Bowers, any of those folks show up at that Chavez meeting?
No, we had a few of the aldermen, and I believe one of the gentlemen was in the treasury, maybe, department.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then it after your Facebook group started to develop, and then there was now obviously there were some concerns at City Hall, and what we heard was that the meeting was quite a few people at the meeting. They weren't particularly crazy about it. They didn't really get their answers, so they put up a Zoom meeting. Now, were you able to get in on that Zoom meeting that was just recently broadcast?
Yes, fortunately I was. I know a lot of people were on a waiting list. Mm-hmm. There was at one point about 120 people on that Zoom meeting.
Well, okay, so let's just stop there for a second. So you got 120 people that want to ask a question or at least be more connected, but the Zoom, it kept them kind of in the dark, or could they hear?
You could hear everything. The problem I felt was not everyone could how the Zoom meeting, was presented to us. It was hard to have everyone's questions answered. Mm-hmm. There was a lady from I apologize, I don't remember where she was from. It was two ladies who were hosting it pretty much. One of them was reading the questions. I feel probably there was a lot of questions coming in. I don't want to say anything bad. I feel that she probably was very overwhelmed with the questions. I myself had probably 10 on there. Mm-hmm. So she would scroll through and pick questions. So she wasn't able to obviously get to all of them. So I don't know how productive some people might have thought it was. They answered, like I said, a few questions within the time that we had.
Was
there
the
was no
mayor?
follow-up, which was hard, very hard. So if
Okay.
you had a question and they answered, you could not come back and follow up. And that was a little disappointing to me. I understand it. I just, sometimes the answer will lead to another question and you are unable to get that across to them or ask about it.
In general, I mean, do you think that meeting was productive, or you think it was just kind of a, what we also heard was that it was kind of a setup. They set up and just kind of played the thing to a positive spin as much as they could, and there were a lot of people that just weren't able to voice their concerns. I mean, do you feel that happened?
Yes, I do in a sense. I do. I had a little more information. Before the meeting, I asked the page, what questions would we like to ask? I took notes. I asked several of the questions, but they weren't answered. So the recap for me was it's not going to be low-income housing, but it would be a private public space. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a positive spin. To me, it was kind of like an advertisement in some sense. But that's just my opinion.
Right. Okay, I mean, what would you like to see? I mean, I guess you have a pretty good thumb on the community, at least a certain degree of it. I mean, what would I guess, consensus of the Facebook group that you're running, I mean, what would they like to see at that park?
The consensus is to keep it a park.
Okay.
It really is.
Yeah.
To redevelop the rec center.
Got
Whether it be added a beer garden or a public space.
Right. Okay, so I appreciate this. I mean, do you think the city's pushing this development? I mean, do you feel, I mean, sometimes you get a feeling on how they're talking like, well, it's going to be up to the community. And I mean, do you feel that maybe the city's just kind of actually pushing this?
In a sense, I do, and I'm hoping we have enough involvement through the page, just through awareness, that our input will really be heard. I'm hoping that's my main hope.
Okay. Okay, if we can, how can they reach you, or what's your page, your Facebook page? So if folks want to join and get more involved, how would they do that?
It's a public page, and it's Save Lakeview Park.
Okay. All right, we'll put that
And
up on the screen.
anybody is welcome. I have some aldermen on there. I have different. I would gather some other aldermen or officials have been on there. I've seen comments, but anybody is welcome. I mean,
Great. Great. Well, I'm great. I'm glad you could speak to us today, and keep up the good work. I think that's what we need: people involvement. However it works out. I mean, the citizens should be involved. They actually, they pay the way for all the public officials that are there to serve the public. So
I agree, and that park is still utilized. I mean,
yep. Oh, I know that park well myself. Yeah.
Yes, and I feel we have had a lot of visitors that do use the park. That even if it's just for parking at the zoo or North Beach, it's used.
Right.
I mean, the courts are always used. I see kids at the park, and I see people playing tennis, the bike paths. I mean, it's a beautiful Lakeview Park that we all share, and I want to continue to share it.
Great. All right, Christine, if we've got any more questions, I'm going to give you a call.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
All righty.
Thank you so much for allowing me on today.
No problem. Talk to you later.
All right.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, it was a nice conversation, Jim.
Yeah, it was.
You did a good job talking with her.
Yeah, nice lady.
And she brought up some very interesting points. I mean, the fact that she and her kids used to love to go over there, which I think is kind of a neighborhood thing.
Right.
A lot of parents go over there, and it's a place where your kids can play in safety, and there's a lot of room there, and you're not dragging sand back into the house on your shoes.
Right.
And
I mean, this is somebody that was a long-term Racine resident and, knows the park well. So,
another thing she brought up was the fact that they asked at the Chavez Center meeting, why was nobody else contacted?
Yeah.
Apparently, this developer has got his foot in the door, but nobody else was even given an opportunity to know that there's a door there.
Right.
Which what the heck is that all about? I mean, does that make any sense to you,
No,
George?
it's a good question. Typically, they put out what's called a request for proposal.
Right.
That's the official name for it, where if you're going to look at developing something, you send out notices to various people that you know do that kind of thing, and come in and bring some ideas and with bids in mind. This whole thing about fact from fiction is though where I'm saying that there's something going on there. They're bringing a developer in there. Let's not pretend that there's no intention to do something. And when you see those words revitalize and reimagine, it's like our Middletown people have with we have another mini Hollywood project coming up here. I realize it's not $1 billion, thank goodness, but this is what we keep getting hit with.
Hey, if it was $1 billion, it would be transformational.
Yeah.
This is just reimagining.
Existential. That's right.
I mean, but when I read this too, and that's why I wanted to reach out to Christine, because when I read this, separating fact from fiction, I thought this is what's being fed, and this is typical of the Journal Times. I mean, they almost get a press release and they just feed it out there, and they don't talk to the community. I mean, they used a person that wrote into letters to the editor in this particular article. And so with Christine, I think it gives you a little bit of a more of a grassroots approach to what's actually happening on the street, because you don't hear that. You're not going to hear it from the city hall, and you're not going to, because their attitude at city hall is that you elected us and we control all that you see and do, and that's pretty much how they really look at.
Yeah, you put us in charge, we're in charge.
Right.
We
And
don't,
you
we
have
don't need
nothing
to hear
to say
anything
to
now.
right, because we're smarter than you and we know more. The only problem is you pay their bill. They are paid by you. That park is owned by you. So you have all the power, and I think people have to realize that, and that's what I wanted to kind of do with Christine, is to say, hey, here you got somebody on the grassroots with a Facebook group that I think is growing and starting to.
And a long time ago, as the city was growing, we're going back a long time, 100 years, whatever it was, there were these areas set aside for parks because people enjoyed it, and they've been really nice as far as I'm concerned. All the time I've lived in Racine, we've managed to take advantage of them, and my kids, and now my grandkids. So it's like to start putting high rises where those parks are, I think is really the wrong direction to go.
Yeah.
I don't see that that's going to
Public-private partnership.
Yeah, we got lots of space for putting up high rises and new manufacturing and things like that, new housing. Tons of space, and we simply don't need to be using our parks that way.
Right.
There might come a time down the road, but that's way down someplace that I'm not even going to think about. We have a totally futuristic society. Maybe we'll have parks up in the air or something like that. I don't know.
When grass is obsolete.
Yeah, well, there you go. But in the meantime, no. This is, and when I see this statement in here in the Journal Times, I think it's very misleading, where it says there are no plans locked into place for construction or demolition to occur there.
Well, why aren't there? It's been 2 years.
Well, that is a true statement. There's no plans locked into place. Yeah, and they're trying to insinuate that therefore there's no plans at all, and that's not the case. There are obviously plans. Like the lady saw. She's going around there and she see people nosing around, and she's going, well, what is going on? And,
Right.
and then the rumors start to build, because it obviously. Now that you got a developer all of a sudden coming in, an alderman, and a big meeting, there's obviously some plans.
Well, here's
going
a couple
on.
of things I kind of question. I think the alderman in there is Caprillion Becker, I think is the alderman in that area. Now, how much power does she really have? I mean, she's, these aldermen have given up their power position. They're no longer really as effective as you really honestly believe they are. And they know they're not, because they're kind of like, they're a part of a system now that Corey Mason has built in the
Part
city
of
of Racine.
Masonville.
Yeah, it's Masonville.
Yeah.
So I mean, don't have any kind of idea that you don't believe that Corey Mason is pushing this with this private developer that he probably has connections with. And if you do a little bit more research, look at the group that was running that Zoom meeting and do a little digging on that. You're going to find out a lot more. And I think what the community needs to do on that north side is to really dig in get your heels dug in if you want that to remain a park, and go after it. And really, you're in charge. Just remember that, and you have rights.
We brought up that Zoom meeting at our last when
Right.
we were looking to the Zoom meeting coming up at our last Talking Racine, and what it does is it puts space between the people and the developers, and it makes it safer for them to operate. And for 120 people now to not be able to get their questions asked or answered really shows you how that barrier was put up there between the people wanting to do something with that park, developing it, and the people that really own the park.
Well, I think there was probably more than 120 who didn't
Yeah.
have questions answered. That was just how many people were in the queue trying
That's
to
what
get,
I mean.
trying to
Yeah,
get into the
yeah,
meeting.
we know that. There could have been a lot more. You're absolutely
Well,
right.
and the people that were in the meeting, not all of them got their questions answered either, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right.
There was
When
no
you got that
follow-up
many
allowed.
people there, that's right.
Yeah,
and,
so-
and until you open, I mean, there was no reason to not open that up so that everybody could appear personally, other than you are trying to block opposition to Corey Mason's plans.
Right.
And
And where was
what he's
Corey
got in
Mason?
mind.
Where's the mayor?
Yeah.
And something like this.
Oh, I'm sure he was watching.
Yeah, he really. But this is how deteriorated your local government has happened in Racine. This is the way it is.
Well, Jim, and you said that, and we mentioned it before, that the way it's set up by law is the aldermen are supposed to be making the plans and coming up with the ideas and how the city should go. The mayor and the staff support the council in their in their ideas, and that's all gotten reversed now. All the council is a bobblehead. They're rubber stamps.
Yeah.
They check over and see what their boss, the mayor, wants to do, and then they go along with it. So it has been totally turned around from what's supposed to happen. And the result is, instead of something, if it was run by the aldermen, they're more closely associated with their constituents and the people.
Correct.
And so now you have kind of a grassroots type operation going on, as opposed to shutting out the aldermen, cuts out the people, and we have this oligarchy, this ruled by a few people who know everything, and they're of higher intellect and a better person type of thing, and so they're going to run this.
What
city
else,
should
George?
be
What
run.
kind of bothers me and it sits in the back is why this developer? Why are we zoomed in on this developer? I mean, is there a connection there of some sort? I mean,
From out of town.
yeah.
You would think that the first people that you would talk to, if you really were serious about just rebuilding that building,
Right.
revitalizing the park, the first people you would talk to would be local contractors, I would think.
I would think so.
It's $1 million. It's $1 million. You can put a pretty nice house for $1 million today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so you got $1 million, and we're not even going to look at putting up a house. We're going to put up a community center, so it can be pretty darn nice for $1 million.
And when they talk about this
and-
community partnership, I mean, when you talk about there could be a brew pub or there could be some, well, okay, it could, yes, you could, but it can be run by private. I mean, you could rent that space to an operator that knows what he's doing, and just like they did North Beach Oasis there,
Right.
and sat for years.
That community was run by the senior center. They actually ran it. They replaced windows. They paid rent. That was the only community center in the city that ran at a positive number. It wasn't costing money. It was actually making money. Every other one
So
of them
that can happen, but to have
But
this
all I'm saying
mentality-
is what you just said there was kind of going on at the time.
Yeah,
The senior
right.
center had contracted out to run it and have events there, and it served a lot of people because there's a lot of seniors in this town. And I was one of them, and I would go there, So it was.
Well, I'd heard there were a lot of people that came in from the surrounding community, too, because it was a nice location.
That's true
right.
too. That's
Yep.
true.
Just
It was.
enjoyed being there.
Yeah, they would have card games and stuff like things old people do. They weren't out on the swings and stuff, out playing soccer, but they'd be inside there doing things like.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah.
On the swings.
I said when Twilight Zone was going when he kicked the can. Anyway,
Well, this Journal Times thing, I don't know. It just puts me in mind of how they handled Machinery Row. I mean, they run an article that it really just kind of diversionary. They don't give you much
Listen,
in the way of
exactly, and
information.
Right, and the thing that really, it's not going to be low income. Oh, that's BS. It's going to be low income. They can't put up a development in Racine that can't really have a certain amount of low income because they can't get the federal dollars if they don't.
Well, they're not going to do a damn thing. What I want to know is where's the money going to go? To what failure is this money going to go to?
Yeah. Well, I agree.
We've put money in all kinds of failures around this town. Who gets this one? Who gets paid to fail down at Lakeview Park and turn it into whatever the hell it's going to be?
It's a shame. That headline is truly, it's not right. You know, it's not good. The Journal Times got to do a better job than that.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Here goes mine.
Okay.
All right, on to the next
in line
one.
is, voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I got a little video. Let me play this. It's the Common Council from December 7th, and this is where they approve 160 alternative voting locations in the city of Racine with the Zuckerberg machine.
Only 160.
Only 160, Doc. I'll get this up.
Is that enough to cover each voter or not?
I don't even know where to go on.
I think we should have a polling place for each voter.
We're coming to your house soon.
Okay, I'm going to the video.
When you see the bus in front, go out and vote.
Okay, stop.
Subject, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason on behalf of the city clerk requesting the attached list of alternate early absentee voting locations for all elections in the 2022 calendar be approved. Recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee is to approve. Right, so this item is about potential alternative polling locations for early voting, satellite voting, and just to clarify, not all of the locations necessarily are going to be used, but we discussed at Finance and Personnel that these locations could potentially be used as alternate locations with our mobile voting unit or in other ways. And so I think the intention of pulling this item was to clarify.
So because of the census and the redistricting, we did go ahead and take a look at all of our polling locations. The maps were very nicely put together where we were able to fit one polling location for every district. So now every alder in your district, you'll have one location. I know quite a few were split up between two different polling locations, so that will no longer be. We did go ahead and we are trying to approve them this evening. Also, our intention is to reach out to the public. I usually like to hold sending a citywide mailer until we're about 3 weeks out from an election. I find that people are more likely to read them and hold on to them when they know an election is coming. But we do fully intend to do a citywide mailer to let everyone know of their polling location, whether or not it has changed, as well as give out our voteracine.org website, and also to be able to direct people to where the mobile RV will be when we hold absentee voting those 2 weeks before an election. Does that answer your question, Alder Tate?
But this is more for the clerk and also related to polling locations and voting, and kind of the package of things that are coming out of the clerk's office as well. But I asked Clerk Coolidge in committee, as a clerk, from her perspective, why is it important that people vote and as many people as possible vote? And why is that something that's been very intentional from the clerk's office to accomplish? Because I think it's important for folks to know, why is the city doing all this stuff? There's a reason for that, and I just want to give Clerk Coolidge an opportunity to speak to that.
Clerk Coolidge.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I think we kind of spoke about it a little bit in committee, and my personal view, I want to put that disclaimer out there, but it's definitely that, democracy is how our government runs. And without giving everyone an opportunity, whether or not you have transportation or whether or not, you need help or filling out a ballot or, asking just, can someone read the list of names? Obviously, we want to provide that opportunity and those services to the community. So we're very thankful to have the opportunity with the RV to be able to provide it to different parts of the city. And we're excited to see what kind of turnout we get and offer our services and our help to anyone who may need them, or even if it's just to come by and ask questions about where their polling location is on election day or who's on their ballot. We'll be able to do all of that. So hopefully we'll see a larger turnout, but certainly being able to help the community and have their voice recognized throughout, elections, not only in Racine, but also in the state and the country, is going to be something I really look forward to be able to provide to the community.
I want to know if there's going to be a brass band accompanying that wagon. That's what I want to know. That'll get the people out. They'll hear the noise and they'll show up.
I don't know. First off, it's illegal. It's
there is a lawsuit already pending
Yeah.
against that type of activity she's talking about. It's not the government's job to get the vote out. The government's job is to make sure that the voting is correct and honest and legitimate. It's up to campaigners, politicians, and political parties, and other interest groups outside the government to get the voters interested in voting. But it is not the business of government.
Exactly.
And there is a lawsuit in that regard that is pending against Tara Coolidge, and she's sitting there right there saying, like, I'm planning on robbing a bank. It's essentially what she's saying.
I don't think they understand it.
I'm figuring out how we're going to violate this law.
I'm amazed at it, really. I mean, you're going to drive this Zuckerberg bought with this Zuckerberg money, and you're going to drive around to 160 locations. I mean, first off, it's impossible, because if you put the numbers together in a 2-week period, there'll be 12 a day. And they're talking about the boat ramp, the every school. What I really like when she talks about, well, help people read and understand what the ballots are. And they're going to the administrative offices of RSUD, the school administrative office. Maybe they do need help. I don't know. But
I want to know when that's a used vehicle, how's it going to be sold? Who gets it? Who's going to get the camper?
I'm amazed.
Yeah, well, like George said, it's not within legal parameters.
Listen,
to do that.
It's get out the vote. That's a get out the vote. That's a campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, if a campaign did it, you'd say, okay, we're going to get out the vote. Now, let's just say, for instance, let's flip this a little bit to the people that are saying, oh, these guys are old, just old barking dogs, always
Who
complaining.
says that?
Yeah, well, they do, Doc. I'm afraid.
They are.
Well, let's just say they went out to Wind Point, and they went door to door, and they said, hey, we got this, we got a van out here. You can come out here, and you can drop your absentee ballot in. We're going to register to vote. And we go door to door in Wind Point or North Bay or some of these other areas. Hey, be hell break loose. I mean, they're going to, what is it, Twins Corner Store. Twins is what? What, Doc? What do they sell there?
Cell phones and booze, pretty much.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's a ploy, and I'm not sure exactly why, because they really can't pull this off. But there's something, to me anyway, when they talked about the other packages coming out of, when Tate says the other packages coming out of the clerk's office, blink, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, wait, there's something else coming up here. So to me, this is more of a looky over here, because we're doing something over here. Because they know this is illegal. They know they can't pull it.
Well, yeah, they do it, which begs the question, why are they doing it? Well, they got the bus now, so I suppose they're looking for things to do with it. They just can't come up with enough ways to spend money, and then utilize the stuff you bought.
Yeah, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, just looking at the list, 160 voting places. I mean, that's just hard to get into the concept of voting. I mean, I've been to a lot of elections, and I always had to go walk to my ballot place, and that's where I cast my thing. It wasn't 160 places of this thing moving around town, like catching a bus,
Well, it's almost like you throw a ballot in the air and it blows down the street. We'll get picked up, no problem. We'll get that ballot.
What are the odds that you're going to know when that thing is going to be closest to your house, where you can just walk over there and drop off?
Doc. They're going to go on the internet and look at My Vote Racine or something, and they're going to find out where the Zuckerberg goes.
And it seems a lot. It seems a lot easier to go to your voting place. You have all day to get there, and you can go there at your convenience. Not like catching a bus. You know how hard it is to catch a bus. You have to know the bus route, then you have to stand out there waiting for the darn thing to come. I mean, it's going to be like you say, Jim. It sounds more like a ploy of look at this thing over here, so you don't, magicians.
Because they're going to get this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I mean, there's no way they're going to come nationally looking at this and say you can't do that, and they know they can't do it. So what's really behind it all? It's a good question. With Corey, you never know. So
yeah, well, like you said, it might be a diversionary thing, and all the hoopla about we're getting out the vote, and
And I think you're right. I mean, what are you really going to get? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, unless you have some kind of and that chain of custody, how does that fall into all of this?
That's a real good one. Yeah, who's there collecting that ballot or vote or whatever it is? And
it's got to be a certified election official, I would think.
That's what the state law says.
Yeah.
Even on those drop boxes, that was a big illegal thing about the Zuckerberg drop boxes, was that there was no chain of custody. There was nobody watching it there. There's supposed to be somebody there to collect it and make sure that that goes in properly and it's kept properly and transferred properly.
Weren't there supposed to be cameras at each location?
I don't know.
Well, they did on the safe vote at home. Had cameras on them, and there's emails to the Sheriff Coolidge, the clerk. Where are those cameras? Well, nobody seems to know where the cameras
we
are.
didn't have any. Yeah, but some states did have cameras, but even then they found out it was difficult because they come in the middle of the night and you couldn't see the face, and you still couldn't tell an awful lot. Yeah. But the thing is there is a way out of all this, and that is those 14 of those 15 aldermen just need to be replaced. I mean, this is the alderman that voted to put that in there, and you heard them talking, and you saw them vote. And if we're going to get this town straightened around, we're going to need some aldermen that are willing to do their duty and do the thing they're supposed to be doing, which is run the city. And it'd also be nice to get a mayor that recognizes what his job is, and that is to help the aldermen get what they want.
Yeah. Don't run the city. Just make sure the city runs.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Take your walking orders from the council and go make sure it happens.
That's right, and they get their walking orders from their constituents.
But if that's the way it should be. But if you got a council that responds to the mayor rather than to the public,
and that's what you got.
You've lost it. And we continue to lose people. And we continue to rely on these big schemes coming in, like we're seeing up there at the park, to rescue the city, and it doesn't have to be that way. The city didn't grow that way. There was nobody came in here and started setting up companies and businesses in Racine's growth. It was people within the city. I mean, Sam Johnson, and he started off laying parquet flooring. Ended up with an international multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah. So it's like, and that'll happen. I think Twin Disc was the same way. People within the city.
Walker.
They
were
allowed to grow.
Yeah, there were a lot of other businesses that, a lot of them have failed now or moved on. But I mean, there were a lot that, like we had luggage companies here, we had automobile manufacturers here. It was an amazingly industrial town.
And a lot of it was just homegrown. It wasn't that somebody came in. Now, some would come in and say, hey, there's something going on in Racine, and they might set up a branch over there, but a lot of it was people just working here and developing their business to the point where all of a sudden, instead of just me and my partner, it's 300 of them working at this company,
Well, all together now. How about one last bark for our viewing audience before we leave and come back next week? Ready?
Roof, 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 roof.
See you next week.